Johnny Rotten here with another rotten read. This one, I want to thank my my friend who sent me these links, or some of these links that I've been reading and will be reading. If you have any links of anything interesting you'd like me to read, you're free to do so. I love getting information that I can share. This one is called long chain. I can't say that word, so we're just going to call it LCPFCAs or PFASs, and they're salts and precursors. And this is an update. The PFAS are a class of over 4,700 human-made substances, alchemy. In April of 2021, the government of Canada indicated that it is considering activities that would address PFAS as a class. You can visit their webpage for the latest information. So here we're going to read a few little things. Health Science Summary. In August of 2021, the Government of Canada nominated LCPFCAs for consideration under the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants. Canada's nomination will be considered at the 17th meeting of the Persistent Organic Pollutants Review Committee. In preparation for the nomination, good job, guys, the Government of Canada examined the science as it relates to human health, and a health science summary was published. Risk Management Action Milestones. In May of 2020, the proposed Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substance Regulations 2022 was published in the Canada Gazette, Part 1, Volume 156, Number 20, May 14th of 2022, for a 75-day public comment period. That's all you got. Their proposed regulations would strengthen existing controls on certain harmful substances, including LCPFCAs, and put new prohibitions in place for 2 substances. In addition, a proposed order to amend Schedule 3, the export control list, to the Canadian Environmental Protection Act 1999 was published for a 75-day public comment period. The objective of the proposed order is to establish export controls on certain substances, including the LCPFCAs, to help ensure Canada's continued compliance with the Rotterdam Convention. The proposed order would come into force on the day in which the Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substances Regulations 2022 come into force. In December of 2018, Environment and Climate Change Canada and Health Canada published the consultation document on proposed amendments to the Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substance Regulations 2012 for PFOS, PFOA, LCPFCAs, HBCD, PBDEs, DPs, and PBDPE. The objective of the consultation document was to inform stakeholders of the proposed amendments to the Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substances Regulations 2012, solicit comments, and request information. Comments and information received in response to the consultation document were considered in the development of the proposed regulations to amend the Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substance Regulations 2012. In October 2018, this intent was issued to the Canada Gazette, Part 1, Volume 152, Number 41, October 13th of 2018, indicating that the Department of Environment and the Department of Health were initiating the development of amendments to the Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substances Regulations 2012. There was a 30-day consultation period associated with the publication. Comments received on the publication were considered in the development of the proposed regulations to amend the Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substances Regulations 2012. In October of 2016, the regulations amending the prohibition of certain toxic substances, Regulations 2012, were published in is this just repeating the same thing? The Canada Gazette, Part 2, Volume 140, Number 20, October 5th through October 16th, and came into force in December of 2016. These amendments prohibit LCPC PFCAs, their salts, and their precursors and products containing them, unless present in manufactured items. Time-limited exemptions and ongoing uses were provided for certain uses where the development of alternatives was underway or where they were currently no known alternatives. For these amendments, compliance-related materials include the Substance Prohibition Summary for PFOA, LCPFCAs, and related substances, and the aqueous forming foam. Try saying that 5 times fast. Forming foam. Damn it. And the Prohibition of Certain Toxic Substances Regulations fact sheet. In April of 2015, the proposed regulations amending the prohibition of certain toxic substances, Regulations 2012, were published in the Canada Gazette, Part 1, Volume 149, Number 14, on April 14th of 2015, for a 75-day public comment period. Comments were considered in the final development of these regulations. Comments and the government's response are provided in the summary of the public comments on the proposed regulations amending the prohibition of certain toxic substance regulations 2012, the house that Jack built. In January of 2014, a consultation document on the proposed risk of measure for long chain PFCAs and salts and their precursors was published. Comments and government's responses are provided in the summary of public comments and consultation document on the proposed risk measure for LCPFCAs and their salts and precursors. Comments received were considered during the development of the proposed risk management action. In March of 2010, a voluntary environmental performance agreement respecting PFCAs and their precursors in blah, 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 products, whatever, sold in Canada was signed. Signatories to this performance agreement agreed to reduce the amount of PFOAs and LCPFCAs in pre-fluorinated chemicals in Canadian commerce by 95% by December 31st of 2010 and eliminate them by December 31st of 2015. Well, that's passed. This performance agreement was implemented as an early risk management action while Environment Canada and Health Canada pursued further assessment to guide future risk management actions. As a result of the agreement, participating companies successfully meet their commitment to eliminate residual PFOA, LCPFCAs, and their precursors. In June of 2006, a Notice of Action Plan for the Assessment of Management of PFCAs and their precursors was published in the Canada Gazette, Part 1, Volume 140, Number 44, June 17th of 2006. The action plan included measures to prevent the introduction of new substances into Canada that would contribute to the level of PFCAs in the environment, and to seek action from industry to address sources of PFCAs already in Canadian commerce. Adding substances to Schedule 1. LCPFCAs, their salts, and their precursors have been added to Schedule 1. Final order adding LCPFCAs, their salts, and their precursors is in the Canada Gazette, Part 2, Volume 147, Number 23, November 6th of 2013. Final ecological screening assessment and proposed risk management approach. In August of 2012, the final ecological screening assessment on long chain, you see this word, their salts, and their precursors was released, and the related notice was published in the Canada Gazette, Part 1, volume number 146, number 34, August 25th of 2012. The final ecological screening assessment concluded. I'd like to find one person that actually read this. That would be, there it is in the Canada Gazette, honey. I'd like to have a copy of this Canada Gazette myself. The final ecological screening assessment concluded that LCPFCAs, their salts, and their precursors meet one or more of the criteria in Section 64 of the CEPA in 1999. Additionally, it is concluded that LCPFCAs and their salts meet the criteria for persistence, but do not meet the criteria for bioaccumulation potential set out of the persistent and bioaccumulation regulations. Nevertheless, the weight of the evidence is sufficient to conclude that LCPFCAs and their salts accumulate and biomagnify in terrestrial and marine animals. Obviously, it's going to do it to us. I'm a terrestrial mammal. A proposed risk management approach on long chain and their salts and their precursors was also released on August 25th of 2012 for a 60-day public comment period, not 75, just 60. Comments and the government's response are provided in the summary of public comments on the proposed risk management approach of LCPFCAs and their salts and the precursors. Comments received were considered during the development of the proposed risk management action. Draft ecology screening assessment and risk management scope. In October of 2010, the draft ecological screening assessment on long chain C9, C20 PFCAs and their salts and their precursors was released, and the related notice was published in the Canada Gazette, Part 1, volume number 144, number 44, October 30th of 2010. For a 60-day public comment period, a risk management scope was also released in conjunction with this publication. The draft ecological screening assessment of 14 precursors to the LCPFCAs, their salts and their precursors, and then it goes through a bunch of numbers, was conducted under Section 68 and 74 of the CEPA 1999 because they were found to meet the ecological categorization criteria for persistent and or bioaccumulation potential and the inherent toxicity to non-human organizations. The draft ecological screening assessment of the LCPFCAs, their salts, and their precursors was conducted under Section 68 of the CEPA 1999 because they were not found to meet the categorization criteria, and they were not categorized since they do not appear on the domestic substances list. Somebody didn't put it on there, so it doesn't exist. You're not on the list. You can't come in. The draft ecological screening assessment proposed to conclude that LCPFCAs, their salts, and their precursors are entering the environment in concentrations or quantities or under conditions that pose a risk to the environment. Therefore, LCPFCAs, their salts, and their precursors meet one or more of the criteria set out in Section 68 of CEPA 1999. The Ministries of Environment and of Health have since added these substances to Schedule 1 to the Act. The public comments received were considered and addressed within the final screening assessment and provided in the summary of public comments received on the draft screening assessment 4. This is your global warming. This is your environmental disaster, right? It's not oil. It's all the things that oil is in, and those are owned by businesses and sold by companies. So, but blame me for buying them. That's what they do. That's what a narcissistic prick does, is the devil, if you will. they blame you. Well, it's your fault. I tried to tell you I was poisoning you, but you just simply weren't listening. So it's all on you now. Bigger fool you. What's that saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me a third time, shame on both of us. And I think that's where we're at now. Hey, remember something. Pay attention to the windows.